The Willard DTC Drug Treatment Campus was a New York State correctional facility that opened in 1995 on a portion of the same site where the Willard Psychiatric Hospital stood. And this boot camp or shock incarceration style drug treatment campus is nestled right on the east side of Seneca Lake in the tiny hamlet of Willard, New York. It was specifically created for incarcerated drug addicts or alcoholics who'd been convicted and sentenced for rehabilitation, and it was considered voluntary. The alternative was a longer sentence in a conventional prison.
Shot! Shot! It hurts! It hurts! Shot! Shot! It hurts! It hurts! No pain! No gain! No gain! No gain! No pain! No pain! No pain! No pain!
Hi, I'm Pam Pariso, a local real estate pro with a passion for Seneca Lake history. I just love this part of upstate New York, and Seneca is my favorite of the 11 Finger Lakes. Please keep me in mind for referrals and subscribe to my videos. Willard DTC opened on September 26, 1995 with its first platoon as a promise of hope for people with addiction issues who were also in legal trouble. It was a unique program for New York State, filled with hope for recovery and based on sound clinical practices. It was basically like a state-funded rehab facility offering an ambitious and cost-effective program. At its height, it had an inmate capacity of 900 with a staff of about 400. Inmates were assigned to a specific platoon upon admission, and they remained with that group for the duration. Each platoon went through a 13-week program rotation, and every week new inmates were admitted. This 90-day treatment program was considered voluntary. It provided a sentencing option for people convicted of a drug offense or parole violators who otherwise would have been sent to a state prison for a year or more. The facility was operated by the New York State Department of Corrections and Community Supervision and was licensed by the State Office of Alcoholism and Substance Abuse Services. So even though it was a drug treatment campus, it wasn't a college campus. It was a prison where the inmates were incarcerated. There was razor wire on top of the high fences, correction officers, strict security and limits on phone, mail, and visitors. So the staff had to adhere to a very strict dress code and take a rigorous 4-week training program themselves, and they were considered role models to the inmates. Positive philosophies were stressed.
Willard is a positive environment for human development in a caring community where members can help themselves and each other. Staff and participants work together to establish and maintain positive growth-filled environments. Community members focus on behavioral change and confront attitudes which are destructive to members and the life of the program. A chance to change, confront mistakes, and accept responsibility for our lives.
Let's talk about the daily schedule at Willard. It was very regimented, like clockwork, with drill instructors shouting orders, and discipline and respect were taught and expected with consequences for non-compliance. Inmates were taught grooming standards, including clothes pressed with military creases, shine shoes, and they had to wear ties and tucked-in shirts to school, visits, and religious services. The military regimen was tough. Everybody had to be up at 5:30 a.m. for physical training. Everybody marched out to the grinder, as they called it, which was an outside area where physical training and company formations took place, rain or shine, snow or heat. They marched in platoons of about 50. At precisely 7:45 a.m., a specific platoon sent chosen representatives to march out and put the flag up the flagpole. And then again in the evening, they took it down at precisely 5:45. Inmates were there because of addiction issues and a criminal history. They could have been sent to Willard by a judge giving them a new sentence or as a parole violator. When the inmates were released, they were required to attend aftercare treatment and continue with parole supervision. Willard DTC had a high level of military discipline that most inmates had never been exposed to before. The walls had slogans on them like, "A bad day in shock is a whole lot better than a good day in jail." These platoons all lived together in the same dorm wing, and they did everything together as a group, marching, eating meals, and rotating through the programs. You know, some struggled because the program was very tough, and they chose to leave to go to a regular prison.
Show of hands, who had a rough childhood? I got mine up, young man.
That was a short clip from a documentary called Wake Up Screaming that you can find on YouTube. It's about 50 minutes long, and personally, I found it very depressing, but you'll have to watch it and draw your own conclusions. You know, no doubt, Willard DTC was a school of hard knocks. It was not meant to be easy street. In addition to group counseling and school, there was vocational training in flooring, painting, masonry, horticulture, and building maintenance. They also had a farm project, which ranged from growing crops that were donated to local food pantries and even a maple syrup manufacturing setup. In November of 2021, which was at the height of the pandemic, sadly, state officials decided that Willard would be one of the 6 New York State prisons to close due to a declining number of inmates. At that time, Willard DTC had about 330 staff members, and yet the inmate population had dwindled to less than 200. A state spokesperson issued a statement that inmates would be relocated to other prisons and staff would be transferred to other facilities such as Five Points or Elmira, and that the facility would be decommissioned. Quote, "We will be able to safely absorb the incarcerated population into vacant beds available at other institutions and relocate the drug treatment campus functions to Lakeview Shock Incarceration Correctional Facility in Chautauqua County. And now, the prison stands empty amid the rubble of dozens of other crumbling brick buildings on the Willard campus, the site of the former psych hospital and insane asylum. If you're on the east side of Seneca Lake, perhaps you're taking in the wine trail, stop and drive through it. My husband worked there as a deputy superintendent of programs from the time it opened in 1995 until his retirement a few years ago. And he, along with many of his former coworkers, are sad that this great program got shuttered. It did a lot of good for a lot of people in its 27 years of existence. The Preservation League of New York State included the massive Willard campus as one of the 7 to save on the list of endangered historical sites, but the state has no immediate plans to repurpose this ghost town, and the local economy was hurt by its closing. Thanks for watching.